G'day and welcome to the show, and we are at round number 1 of the Australian Offshore Superboat Championship held in beautiful Bowen, Far North Queensland, the home of the magnificent Mangoes and one of the greatest racing venues that you will ever come across. Conditions look absolutely magnificent today, and the teams are getting their boats into the water. The teams that have put a lot of hard work and development into these craft over the off-season.
We haven't done any real major performance upgrades. It's more been just mechanical and reliability changes that we've made. So the boat was super quick. Last year it was very quick in qualifying yesterday. So we know reliability is going to be key to repeat it as champions again.
Pre-season was fairly quick. As I said, we did win the championship last year, and the boat stayed in one piece, which was really good. Slight modification to the hull this year was where we put an escape hatch in the tunnel. So that was our pre-season, getting that installed and freshening everything up ready for this year.
Pulled down the motors last year, and there was a few issues we've attended to, so we think we should have a little bit more performance out of them. Yesterday, still a little bit flat in some sections of the acceleration, but something to go back and work on.
We were actually concentrating on our X-Cat boat that Tom and I run in the World Series, and unfortunately in the first round in Fujairah we had a big crash, and we've totaled the boat, and I spent a few days in hospital, so that was sort of the tough start of the season. Getting the number 11 boat going, it sort of missed out a little bit. We're getting it ready for Superboat in the US, so we've lost a little bit of test time, but hopefully we'll make get some info from it this weekend.
Bowen traditionally has been flat track racing, which means it's normally nice and calm. That's very challenging in itself, whereas you need to have your gear meticulously maintained because it is high-speed racing, high-speed cornering. This weekend it's not, it's complete opposite, so this weekend we just need to focus more on surviving it and getting over the finish line.
It's fairly choppy and windy, so the wind will blow the boats across the course. So the optimum exit of a corner is having it exactly on the angle, allowing for the wind to blow you to the next mark. If you get it wrong and you've got to turn the wheel again, you'll lose speed.
Hopefully everything's screwed down and bolted in, and we won't have any issues. We did well yesterday in qualifying, so it's showing promise. The little boat's showing promise. Andrew's driving well, so let's see what today brings.
Plenty of R&D going on for the race teams in the off-season, and as the race crews prepare the course at this magnificent Bowen course, we will have a bit of a look at what happened in the shootout yesterday afternoon. Maritimo went into pole number 1. Their fastest lap, 148.97 kilometres an hour. Tom Barry-Cotter and Steve Jellick. Tom on the wheel and Steve on the throttle. Second, it was another Maritimo benefit, the 11 boat with Andrew and Ross Willerton, the father and son combination. This is the stern drive boat. This is the boat that has been built to go and race in the World Championships in Key West. Then it was into position number 3, and it is the Newcastle 222 racing machine with Darren Nicholson and Peter Muddy McGrath. They did a fantastic job. Into 4th spot, but the first outboard home was Mick Walker and Ian Harris in the Phantom, the little purple rocket ship, the 25-foot shifty catamaran running the 3.2 litre Stroker Mercury engines. Then into 5th spot and second for the outboard category, it was Michael and Griff Ethel, another father-son combination, and another 25-foot shifty catamaran, this time running the 2.5 litre Mercury. So a quick recap of the pole position shootout here for Bowen sees Maritimo 1 going on to pole, Maritimo 12 I should say, Maritimo 11 into second, 222, then it will be Phantom and the Power Zone 88 Racing. So boats lining up for race number 1 and selecting their pole positions, and we go on board with Darren Nicholson and Peter Muddy McGrath, the great man there on the left-hand side. Nicholson, you can see him absolutely concentrating, just getting the boat lined up. They'll be out of pole 3 and running hard as we see the boats line up now. Little bit of wind chop across the course here at Bowen, and as we've heard a couple of the guys talk about earlier on, it's normally a bit of flat track racing. No real ocean swell on this course. The hammers go down, and we are away, and have a look at the acceleration from the 222 Newcastle machine. McGrath and Nicholson storm hard down into turn number 1. This is where the crowd absolutely loves this venue. The boats come hard down into the port turn and right in close to the crowd, and they get an absolute bird's eye view of this. Maritimo 12 on the inside, Maritimo 11 on the outside. 222, they turn it in. They have to leave a lane for the 2 Maritimo boats on the inside. They let it drift a little bit wide. Out to the jetty now, and McGrath, he has got a cracking start there. Nicholson turns the boat in. Hopefully they left enough room. It all looked pretty tidy from where I was sitting. And then the outboard battle continues on behind these guys. And have a look at this. Absolutely gunnel to gunnel and deck to deck as the power zone, the 88 power zone machine, Michael and Griff Ethel, the father-son combination here, the little 2.5 litre Mercuries, always known for their hard acceleration, and they're actually managing to hold fire with the bigger engines on the Phantom there. You can just see on their inside, but this is an absolute ding-dong. Oh, tight racing. I tell you what, there was absolutely nothing in that. Maritimo 12, just absolutely no room. The 222, leaving them just one boat's width on that turn. This is desperate racing, amazing stuff. We're a little bit light on in the field for this first round. We've still got some boats being prepared in the sheds, but I tell you what, that hasn't altered the quality of the racing. All the desperation from these teams. 222 and Maritimo really are fierce competitors now, out of 2 different stables, and I tell you what, there's no love lost there. I wonder what discussions will be had back in the pits after that one. Now back on board with Nicholson and McGrath, and they'll have Maritimo 12 on their inside. So as they look like they've got a little bit of a break as we look out the screen to the port side of the boat, and it looks as though the Maritimo 12 boat has got a little bit of a break. So Tom Barry-Cotter and of course Steve Jellick doing the throttle duties in that particular boat. Have a look at the rooster tail and the spray there, and these boys are serious. Nicholson working hard on the wheel there, just trying to hold that tight line. They want to try and hold this Maritimo boat in as tight as they possibly can and try not to give them any room to just run wide and let the boat run on. They want to try and sustain the momentum that they're trying to continue with this boat. So we go on board now, or we track with Maritimo 12, Tom Barry-Cotter and Stevie Jellick, and they have been doing a fantastic job. This boat has been the class of the field the last couple of seasons, and they push hard as they come down into the bottom turn. They've got a little bit of a break on the Maritimo 12 now, so they tip the boat in for lap number 2 and getting it done very, very nicely indeed. They need to try and hold fire here. This is what pole position does for you. It just allows you to run that tight line, and you can have a look now. 222 running on the inside of the wash. You can see how tight they ran onto the buoy there on their port side, and you can see the guys really trying a few tactics now, trying to maybe sneak up the inside and trying to get the job done on the might of the Maritimo team. This is enthralling racing at the moment, and these guys really having a red hot go. Beautiful livery on this Newcastle 222 machine, and Darren Nicholson, well, we call him the mayor of Newcastle, don't we? He absolutely loves it. He's also got the Supercars Coach Hire livery on the boat there, supporting the Newcastle V8 Supercar round, and as they come down through the bottom turn, and it looks like it's very, very serious in the cockpit of this boat at the moment. They need to work out how they're going to try and catch this Maritimo 12 boat. Really nothing in it, probably about 3 or 4 boat links at the moment, and the boys hard on it. Have a look at the telemetry on the dash there. So Peter Muddy McGrath monitoring both engines. You can see the 2 tachos, so that's the 2 bar graphs that you can see on your left hand side there. When the boat jumps up out of the water, when you see those little plumes of spray coming out the back of the boat, that's the propellers actually leaving the water. That's when the propellers want to spin free and all the load comes off the engines. Now you don't want that to spin the engines up over their RPM limit, because you're going to stretch rod bolts and you're going to have failures. So the throttle man's job is to just pull back on those throttles while those props are out of the water, and then back on them once he gets into the water. Not seriously rough conditions today. It's a typical Bowen chop. You can see a little bit of white water out there, a few white caps, and a ding-dong battle still continuing on. We've actually had a change of position here. The Phantom have been pushed out wide, and the 88 Power Zone machine, Michael and Griff Ethel, have just snuck up the inside, so that's a great effort from them. Have a look at the spray that comes up over the engines. This is where they need to be a bit careful. Salt water getting into those air intakes and causing these engines a problem. You can see the spray just all over. Obviously the wind is blowing over the starboard side of the boat. They're really showering that starboard engine. A lot of spray when they come down through this bottom turn, and the boys want to be really careful of that. Not a lot they can do about it, but that's why these engines and these machines are so, well, they can be so fragile because they're in such a harsh environment, and the teams really need to just dot every I and cross every T when they're preparing these machines, because the punishment that these machines cop and Mother Nature dishes out is just unrelenting in these races. So Maritimo 12 still race leader, doing a beautiful job. Bill Barry-Cotter's team, you'd be quite happy to see this boat circulating around in the lead. But Triple Two, not too far behind. They are, and you can see the boat just lurching there. They just crossed the wash there of the Maritimo. So they're really trying everything here. They're zigzagging. You can see the punishment they're taking. Sometimes in this smoother water where you're actually going faster, a little bit of a ride grin now on my old mate Darren Nicholson's face there. Maybe he thinks we might be catching him here or having a bit of a dip, but sometimes when you're going quick over this less lumpy water, you know, you haven't got the big swells there, you can actually cop a bit more punishment because you're going faster and you do hit harder when you hit these smaller waves and chops. So these guys, they'll be doing up around the 120, 125 miles an hour mark in these boats at the moment. Super, super quick. So well up into the 200 kilometre an hour bracket in some of the stretches on these courses. This is a Maritimo 11. And this is Ross and Andrew Willerton. Ross Willerton, one of the absolute greats of offshore powerboat racing in Australia. His son Andrew becoming that way as he worked his way in this boat, doing a fantastic job. This is a battle of the race at the moment. The outboards, the Supercat outboard, these boats are limited to 600 horsepower, so twin 300 horsepower. The Phantom there on the outside, 25-foot shifty catamaran. It's running a pair of 3.2 litre Mercury 300 XS strokers on the transom of that boat. This boat, the 88 Racing, it's running smaller engines. Now, you might think that the bigger engines are always going to beat the smaller engines. Not necessarily. These engines are lighter. They're 2.5 litre. They're an EFI purpose-built race engine. They are starting to become older technology now, but they're a very, very powerful and aggressive little engine. Probably not as reliable as the 3.2 litre strokers that are on the back of the Phantom machine. But I tell you what, when they're on song, these little engines rev up to around about 8 to 8,200 RPM, and that boat capable of well up over the 100 mile an hour bracket, the 160 kilometre an hour bracket. Maritimo 12 now pushing on, forging on. These guys are using this round to gather points and also to gather data for the rest of the season. There's more boats coming online for the rest of the season, and these guys need to try and fend off all the challenges that are going to come their way. The Triple Two, they've just been chipping away for the last couple of seasons. They've just been pushing. Maritimo set a very, very high benchmark. They are the #1 team here in Australia, Bill Barry-Cotter's team, and they do everything within a millimetre. Peter McGrath, of course, used to work for the team Maritimo, so a little bit of a coup there for Darren Nicholson to get Peter McGrath over to Team Triple Two, and Peter, of course, one of the greats in offshore powerboat racing, not only in Australia but in his early career. Very, very successful. NZ1, he is a Kiwi, of course, as most of our offshore racers are, but he does an awesome job, and it was a very, very cunning and strategic move, you'd have to say, by Darren Nicholson to get him over to the Triple Two Newcastle. And I tell you what, it's paying dividends. This boat was being lapped by Maritimo only 2 years ago, and now they are hunting them and challenging them for race wins. So they're in the wash now at the moment of Tom Barry-Cotter and Stevie Jellick, and they just need to find something. They need to find a little bit extra here just to try and, if they can sneak up the inside or wait for Tom Barry-Cotter and Steve Jellick to make a mistake in that Maritimo 12 boat. Don't know that that's going to happen. Doesn't happen very often. They are very, very good operators but this is what offshore powerboat racing is all about. It's also about reliability, and that is absolutely crucial in this series. All of these boats throughout the series will have mechanical issues. There will be rollovers, there will be problems. It's about the teams that can deal with these problems the best. So, as we continue on, we'll take a short break and we'll be back with more racing here at Bowen for round number 1 in just a moment. Welcome back to the Mango Capital, beautiful Bowen in North Queensland, and we are slap bang in the middle of race number 1, round number 1 of the Australian Offshore Superboat Championships, and these boys are having a lovely day in the cockpit. We go on board with Tom Barry-Cotter to your left of screen and Stephen Jellick to your right of screen. Stephen on the throttles and Tom on the steering or the pilot duties of this particular Maritimo 12 machine, and they are pushing hard. They're out in front, and they look like a fair bit of concentration there, and why wouldn't there be? They have got the ominous 222 looming up in their mirrors. A real battle has been continuing on, though, in this particular Supercat outboard category, which is a 600 horsepower limited category, the 88 we are tracking with at the moment, which is Michael and Griff Ethel, and they are a father and son combination in their 25-foot shifty catamaran 2.5 litre Mercury race engines. And if I had to have a guess, I would suggest that the wash that we can see there is the Phantom crew, and the Phantom doing a wonderful job. The beautiful little purple machine with Mickey Walker and Ian Harris, they are just trying to hold off this power zone entry. But out in front we go. We've got 222 chasing these guys. It's Tom Barry-Cotter and Steve Jellick, and as we spoke about a little bit earlier in the show, it's the absolute might of the Dark Empire, the Maritimo team. They do everything right. They are professional, switched on, and doing a wonderful job out there at the moment. And it does look a lot choppier than perhaps we first thought when we originally had a look. Conditions might be just deteriorating a little bit, but you can see it's like a wind chop, so it's almost like driving down a corrugated road at the moment. You can see their heads bouncing up and down, just as if they're driving down a corrugated road at about 200 kilometres an hour. That's exactly what they're copying at the moment. And what happens there is your eyes start to bounce in your head, and I'll tell you what it is, the conditions certainly getting rougher as this race continues on, and we can pick that up because down into turn number 1 is this battle continuing on between our 600 horsepower Supercat outboard category, the Phantom on the outside and the Power Zone on the inside, and these guys are having to really work for it. They're starting to jump out of the water. You can see the propellers of the Phantom coming up out of the water. So Throttle Man needs to be on his game now, needs to be pulling off the throttles and stopping those engines over revving and then getting back on them. If you don't get back on the throttles in time, the propellers are going slower than what the boat's going, so they act like brakes. And what happens? They pull the back of the boat up, they slow the back of the boat up, which in turn nosedives the boat into the next wave. That creates a situation that we call a duff in powerboat racing, and you don't want that. So it's really critical now that these boats are starting to jump out of the water. The Throttle Man's really starting to work these throttles and get the job done. Maritimo, they're coming down. They're going to get close to putting a lap on the outboard category boats now, as you'd expect. But I tell you what, hunting them down like a rampant dog at the moment. It's the 222. They are right in the rooster, right in the spray of the Maritimo 12 now. Nicholson and McGrath, they can smell blood now. Maritimo style blood as they come up the back chute. Has Maritimo got an issue? These guys have just been chipping away and chipping away. Potentially the 222 boat is set up to be lighter, so it's now burning off some fuel, getting a bit lighter as they all are. This boat may be actually performing better once it burns some of that fuel off. They split the two outboard boats, having their own battle and continue on their own way. So concentration you can see now. Nicholson on your left of screen, McGrath on your right of screen. He's on the throttles, and I tell you what, nobody wants to beat Team Maritimo more than Peter Muddy McGrath. Friendly rivalry there. Of course, his old boss, Bill Barry-Cotter, he wants to show him why he's the man. And McGrath pushing hard, trying to make up ground. This team is absolutely professional in their approach. They turn up with the boat on a trailer. They turn up with a V8 supercar style Pantech, and they do an awesome job. They've got a list of sponsors on board for this boat as long as your arm, and they want to show their sponsors why they are backing them, and they want to push hard, and they want to put that Maritimo boat behind them. Equally, Team Maritimo, absolutely used to this position, being out in front, being the hunted, and they know how to deal with it. Steve Jellick, Tom Barry-Cotter, they are all over this at the moment. Tom has, of course, been racing quite successfully internationally in the XCat category in Europe and also over in the Middle East, and he's been doing an amazing job in a category that's very, very argy-bargy and push and shove. So they'll welcome a challenge coming here from the 222 and they will respond to it. This boat, I love it. It looks fantastic, doesn't it? Look at the way the transom slopes off. It's got a pair of Mercury number 6 outdrives on the back of this boat. It is the only boat in the series that runs these Mercury number 6 drives. The reason that they're doing this is this boat actually fits into an international category, an American category in actual fact, for the World Championships, and this boat is basically being tested here in Australia so that it can be sent over to the World Championships in Key West and be competitive. The drives are different in that the drives actually steer the boat, so the propeller is on the bottom of the drive, much like your outboard engine or any stern drive for those of you that have motored around in your social boats on the weekends. Very similar deal. The drive actually steers the boat. So this can be a good thing and it can also be a bad thing as well. These boats tend to turn really, really well. They can get the boat right in nice and tight on the pins and they can sneak up the inside of the shaft-driven boats. The shaft-driven boats probably a little bit less swingy mass in the water, so they do have less friction and in return a little bit more speed sometimes. But the Mercury number 6 drive, absolutely proven and reliable product, and these boats really, really go well. And this boat, it's a brand new boat out of the Maritimo stable. They actually, the boat that they made the plug for, or the original boat that was made off this boat, you'll remember was destroyed at Mackay in a huge duff with these guys. And they've obviously done a repair on that particular boat, put it back together, and then made a mould, and then they've made this boat from that particular boat and obviously made the changes that they wanted to the boat whilst they did that. So it's an interesting boat. It's a fantastic looking boat, and certainly if you can get to any of these offshore rounds and check these boats out up close and personal, TV certainly does not do them justice. They are absolutely beautiful and big and just something to behold. So certainly urge you to check the calendar on the OSC Facebook page or website and check the dates out, and if there's one that you can get to, I highly recommend it. They're great party weekends and great to see the boats, and just exciting, colourful racing. You can get up, you can meet the drivers and you can talk to them, and you know, the kids always get a go. The drivers are happy to put the kids in the boats and show them around and show them how everything works. So certainly recommend, if you can get to any of these races, make sure you do. Here we go, it is on, and well, like Donkey Kong, as I say, Maritimo now just sneaks past. So they've split the Phantom there and 88 Power Zone, and that's actually an advantage now to 88 Power Zone. So these guys won't be too happy with that. Let's just go on board here. The Phantom, as they tip in, you can see the Maritimo on the outside of them there, and the 222 on the inside. That's pushed them wide, and they've lost a little bit of ground to the 88 Power Zone, Michael and Griffith Thal. So it's all about tactics here, and Michael and Griffith Thal running on that tight line and forcing the big boats to go around the outside of them, whereas the Phantom ran that little bit wide. And if you're going to run wide, don't worry, Peter McGrath and Darren Nicholson are going to stick their boat up the inside every single time. They want to travel the shortest distance around this course possible, because they're in the hunt, trying to hunt down this Maritimo boat at the moment. Absolutely sponsor to sponsor now in the Supercat outboard category, and it's Power Zone by about a boat length at the moment. On board now with Tom Barry-Cotter and Steve Jellick, and they're still pushing hard. They'll still be looking in those mirrors, and you can see Stevie just talking to Tom there, saying they're still there, we still need to keep pushing. 222 is charging. What's happening here? It looks like Stevie, he's pointing at some stuff, and we've got some problems here. There's a problem for Maritimo 12. They've slowed right down. 222 goes by on the starboard side, and this is devastating. I said that it was all about attrition and all about reliability, but I tell you what, Darren Nicholson and Peter Muddy McGrath, they lick their lips, they rub their hands together, they go past Maritimo and move into the lead. 222 now leads round number 1, race number 1 of the Australian Offshore Superboat Championships here at Bowen, and Barry-Cotter and Steve Jellick, they are slowing to absolutely crawling pace now, and this is absolutely devastating for this particular crew, the crew that is normally so reliable. Discussions being held in the cockpit now. Just see if we can hear what they've got to say. Yeah, and you can hear Tom there just talking to race control, saying race control, boat 12, and he will be telling them that it is snafu'd. They are out of the game. Unfortunate on the second last lap, but it is going to be an opening for a couple of bright young sparks here in Darren Nicholson and Peter Muddy McGrath as they come through and take the win in the Newcastle 222 Racing, and the team will go wild back in the pits. They've won it through a little bit of attrition, but as I said, you have to win it in the pits and the garages and the workshops prior to the race. The real battle coming down to the wire, though, I just picked up as these guys rounded them up, was the outboard battle, and they are absolutely charging to the line. You go on board with Nicholson and McGrath, 222 Offshore, and they discuss it. They don't want to win that way probably, but probably happy to take the points as well. So let's recap. In Supercat Extreme, it was 222 Offshore back to Maritimo 11 and Maritimo 12, a DNF unfortunately. And in the Supercat outboard, a drag race to the line, seeing the Phantom just pipping out the Team 88 Power Zone Racing.
Yeah, look, it was a good race. We were very close. One slight mistake and you know, each boat will lose a bit. We lost a bit, we caught up a bit. It was close. It was good fun, good racing. So yeah, I don't know what their issue is now, but hopefully they'll get it sorted for the next one. I've seen that sort of turn before, and sometimes it comes off for them, sometimes it doesn't. So we made sure there was enough room, and we lived to keep going around. It was just bouncy. Yeah, somebody suggested we were going along, it looked a bit like a limousine. We'll be really clear, it's not. It's bouncing the billy-o out of the stuff, and no doubt when we lift it out, we'll see the results and the handiwork that we've left there. So it was good.
Yeah, the water was actually quite challenging. You know, we're only 36 foot long compared to the 40 footers, so I think we paid the price there. But we still got a couple of little teething problems with the trim and the steering. But as I said, this is a development boat. We've got a year to get this thing ready for America, so you've got to start somewhere. But yeah, we're happy with second.
We've got the mechanic onto it now, and hopefully we'll find the problem. I don't think it's too internal. I think it's hopefully an easy fix, and we're working hard on it now to try and get it out there for race 2.
It was a fantastic race, and looks like 2018 is starting where 2017 finished off racing the Phantom. The conditions were very challenging. There were certain sections of the race course that suited us, but the Phantom was just getting us on that home run. So race 1 to him, and let's see what happens in race 2. Hopefully the conditions abate a little bit. They did yesterday when the tide started to go out, so hopefully we don't have that little bit of swell coming on the chop. And I might just try a little bit harder trimming the boat, especially with the sea conditions. But going into them, we seem to have it a little bit better than what he does, but let's see what race 2 does.
On the two stretches down and back into the wind, the Phantom was a little bit faster, a little bit bigger, a little bit heavier, and so we were a little bit better in those. And then Griff caught us on the way back over towards the other way, the Mango. So yeah, no, really good. In the rough conditions, we know that the big boats are going to catch us quite often during the half-an-hour race. So we're always in the revision mirrors watching out for them, and they are very good. They always go to the outside of us. So no, it's great.
We love coming to the town of Bowen, and I tell you what, the hard-working committee, led by Mickey Boyce and Paul McLaughlin, do an absolutely awesome job. They are so welcoming to the Australian Offshore Superboat Championships.
It's a whole event for us. It's not just about the superboats, they're the main attraction, but we build a whole event around it. So, you know, the street festival last night, as you saw, whole town turns out. Nothing like parking all the boats in the street, and the whole town comes out to enjoy it. So, very happy to have them back. And this is 5 years we've been going now, and we've got a stable committee, and we've got an excellent lady in Jillian that looks after it for us, and she's got all the templates set up, and we're ready to go again next year.
Bowen, it's really the whole town comes down. They really get behind the event and makes the event something really special. obviously we're up here in in North Queensland. The water out here and the surroundings is it's just such a beautiful venue as well. So that's what we really appreciate. And cherish. Getting to race at a place like this.
We love coming here every year. As you say, the community gets behind it, and they just make us feel so welcome. And it's a fun racetrack to be at.
The race course is very good, but the whole thing with Bowen is I call it a mini Key West. They do a street parade. The people are unreal. They get behind the whole event, and I think that's what makes it so special.
I don't think we have any more fun than the Bowen venue at the meet and greet and the Saturday night street parade with all the people coming around. It's good, and there's always somebody from Newcastle comes in, and it's a lot of fun. Really enjoy it.
So race number 2 about to get underway, and unfortunately, just talking to the guy in the pits, Maritimo 12, they've got a niggling problem in that boat. They don't think it's anything major, but they can't get it sorted out, which is very, very disappointing, and it's going to hurt their championship points. What that's going to mean is Team Maritimo are going to be absolutely desperate at the next round, because they are going to have ground to make up. A shortened season this season as well, which doesn't give them as many opportunities to try and get points on the board. What that does for this team is put them in a very, very strong position. The 222, Darren Nicholson and Peter McGrath. Preparation on this boat is absolutely immaculate, and they get up and going. They are still going to be challenged by Ross and Andrew Willerton in the Maritimo 11 boat, which I'm just looking for now, and it looks like they may have an issue as well. We're hearing from our observers that they look like they are parked up in the centre of the course at the moment. In fact, I can see them there. So the flag drops, and Maritimo are in all sorts at the moment. They have no boat on the course. 222, Darren Nicholson, Peter McGrath, they look up the gods and they say, wow, we have got a good day going on here at Mighty Bowen, as the 222 tips down into the port turn for the first time and gives the crowd and all the backpackers a shower, much needed I must say, on the jetty there as well as they come through. What a fantastic place to watch the action. The outboard battle goes on. Phantom, they won race number 1, and it looks like they've got a pretty good start going into 2. However, Michael and Griffith Thowell, as we go on board with these guys now on the side of the cockpit here, hope we don't lose this camera, boys. This could be an expensive day, but they charge up the inside and running on pole 1, so they will have the cleaner and shorter line to run from the Phantom. These guys, there was only about a boat length in it in race number 1, and it looks like it's going to go down the same again here at race number 2 here at Bowen. This is round number 1 of the Australian Offshore Superboat Championships for the 2018 season, and the Phantom go through. That is a sad sight, and I tell you what, it's not a sight that Mr. Bill Barry-Cotter will be relishing. Both of his chargers parked up now here at Bowen, and we can see Andrew Willerton just getting a bow line onto the 11 boat now. I tell you what, not your best angle, Andrew, but he is very, very disappointed there, and I reckon Big Roscoe's probably just sitting back in the cockpit, making the son do all the hard work this afternoon out on the deck work, because their day is done here at Bowen. Very, very disappointing for Team Maritimo. Normally the most competitive and reliable runners going around in offshore superboat racing, but today is not their day, and preparation needs to continue over the season as these guys get their acts together. This is the real battle of the race that we're going to be watching for this one now. This is an amazing race. You can actually see the Hog's Breath start boat there just in the middle of the course, and that is the boat that these 2 boats are actually moulded from. So they're both shifty catamarans, and both very, very good boats. Actually, a lot of these have been sent over to New Zealand and run quite a strong series over in NZ as well. They're fantastic little boats, and it's a great way and a relatively cheap way to go offshore powerboat racing. So I tell you what, if you're out there and you think this looks like a lot of fun, one of these little boats, you can put it together very, very reasonably priced, particularly compared to racing cars. And I tell you what, much more fun racing boats than cars. The ever-changing surface of water keeps you constantly on your toes, keeps the heart running the whole time. I can absolutely assure you of that. And the challenge of racing on water is really something that once it gets into your blood, well, these guys just wouldn't have it any other way. Nicholson and McGrath. It's an amazing effort from this team, and I'll tell you what, their team manager, Sky Gregory, does an awesome job. The livery on the boat looks absolutely magnificent. It's complemented, as I said earlier on, by the Pantech that they tow around, all their merchandise. They do an amazing job for the sport. They really promote the sport well, and it's great to have such a big challenger to the might of the Maritimo team, and someone like Darren Nicholson, who I'd have to say is probably one of the nicest men in powerboat racing, full stop, is also a red-hot competitor. He's not a guy that likes to come second. He's not a guy that likes to get beaten. He's always got a smile on his face, but I tell you what, once he's in that cockpit, the seriousness comes on, and he is a racer of races. He's actually done many Sydney Hobart yacht races. He was a yachty for many years, and it's quite rare for the yachties to cross over to powerboats and vice versa, so it's great to have stolen one of those yachties and got him into offshore powerboat racing. I tell you what, he absolutely loves it. He's having a ball out there. This is the battle continuing on, and this is incredible. Fantastic parity in this category, as you can see at the moment. The acceleration from the little 2.5s now, as they just pull about a boat length lead on the Phantom. Phantom will now try and go with them. Mick Walker and Ian Harris. It's an interesting scenario. Although both of these boats are the same in terms of their hull structure, the engine packages are quite different. The 88 Power Zone machine running with 2.5 litre, 2-stroke fuel-injected Mercury race engines. Those engines run a 1.87 to 1 or a 2 to 1 gearbox ratio, depending on the course that they're running on the day. On a short course, they'll go down to the 2 to 1. On a longer course, they'll run the 1.87. Oh, I tell you what, Harris and Walker copping a few big hits there as well, as the purple people leader just throws itself up into the air. They're doing a great job. The engine packages on this particular boat are the 3.2 litre Mercury 300 XS. As I said, they're a 3.2 litre, they're an Optimax engine, so high pressure direct fuel injection. They run an air compressor and air rails and inject fuel and air into the cylinders in that manner. And they also run obviously different gear ratios, 2 selections for those boats as well, a 1:6:2 ratio, and they can also run a 1.75 to 1 ratio, and they will swap between those gearboxes again depending on what courses they're at. So the engine packages on the two boats are quite different. Setup is totally different really, because you're talking different power, different torque, different gearbox ratios, and then of course propeller selection is totally different for the two boats as well. So the fact that they're running so close together is just absolutely incredible, that these boats are prepared, and there is good parity in the category there in that manner at the moment. Mick Walker and Ian Harris, a couple of good guys of offshore powerboat racing, and I'll tell you what, they've got their work cut out for them at the moment, because Mickey and Griffith Howell, the father-son combination in the 88 Power Zone, are pushing hard here at Bowen. The race is on. We'll be back with more in just a moment. Welcome back to round number 1 of the Australian Offshore Superboat Championships. This is race number 2 here at the Mango capital of Australia, beautiful Bowen. And I tell you what, there's an enthralling battle going on out in the water here, and the conditions just starting to chop up a little bit. They started to chop up at the end of race number 1, and they've continued to get bigger and bigger here now at 2. And the Phantom has a nice little controlled fly as it comes up into the top turn, just punching into the waves head on, and that is a throttle man's dream there, just popping the nose up and just working the throttles beautifully. Ian Harris and Mickey Walker doing a beautiful job, but look at the inside line. Look at the advantage it gives you, particularly in these races where there's quite a lot of parity between the two boats. The shorter line gave them about 4 or 5 boat lengths here. Michael and Griff Ethel in the 88 Power Zone Racing entry, doing an absolutely wonderful job. Another thing that happens here at Bowen, which is really amazing, and as we've said earlier on, the crowd, the town really gets behind this race and really supports it. And, Paul McLaughlin and Mickey Boyce, the driving forces, they're only a couple, but there is literally probably about 30 people that really get in and help organise this race, meaning we have tents set up on the foreshore, there's stalls, there's food, there's beer, and commentary live on site as well. And it's just an event. The powerboat racing is just such a small part of just everything that goes on here at Bowen. We also have adopted the Adopt a Boat scheme, and that's a fantastic initiative by these guys guys as well. So basically local town businesses put in a little bit of coin and they adopt a boat, and that boat then looks after them for the weekend. They show them in the boat, they take them for rides in the boat, they have their own corporate facility on the bank, and they just have a wonderful day. And it's a really great way to get behind offshore powerboat racing, but it's also a great way to become involved in powerboat racing. So the Adopt a Boat program, initiated here at Bowen by the guys that run it, and it's an amazing job. They do a fantastic amount of work that goes into this race. Look at the spray just again showering over that starboard engine on the little 88 power zone. Those cowlings actually have an air intake at the back of the cowlings which directs air normally down through and then into the engine. So obviously when they're getting showered down like that, they are sucking in salt water. So these machines just run in such incredibly harsh environments, and it's an absolute credit to the engine manufacturers and the guys in the workshop. The man on the right there, Peter McGrath, he is one of the greatest offshore powerboat engineers this country has ever seen, and he's also one of the best throttle men, and I would have to say probably the most experienced throttle man going around in Australasia at the moment, and super highly respected by everybody, and just such a quiet guy. Does a beautiful job. Big Muddy McGrath, and Darren Nicholson, I know, is just absolutely ecstatic to have him on the team, along with young Mark Tolcher, who does a fantastic job on this boat as well. He does the running around and the engineering work, and Mark is an absolute legend on this team and does a fantastic job. So good on you boys, you've prepared this boat better than everybody else out there at the moment, and it's circulating and it hasn't been beaten up, so good effort there. If you have a look at the dash to the right hand side of the roll bar strut there, you can actually see they run a camera off the back of the boat. So of course the mirrors on these boats are near on useless. You can actually see the two little mirrors there in the cockpit, and they really don't do a lot, to be honest. You can see spray pretty much out of them. In fact, there's a good example of one of the mirrors that's on the Power Zone boat, the Michael and Griffith L piloted machine, and you really just see a whole bunch of spray, and if a boat's in the spray you can't actually see them. So the camera there, fantastic idea, and you can see it's even on our TV screen here, very clear, and they can see who's on their inside, who's on their outside, and who's following. You also notice that on the dash to the left of that particular screen they have their GPS, so they've got their course marked out on that, and they know what course they're running, and they know where to find the turn buoys. So of course back in the olden days in offshore powerboat racing, you were relying on charts taped to the dashboard, open cockpit boats in those days of course, and of course just the old trusty compass on the deck, and you had to run to your waypoint. So technology is certainly well and truly alive in offshore powerboat racing now. The dash of this thing looks like a fighter plane. It's absolutely amazing, probably better than a fighter plane in some instances. The technology is all there. You can see the bar graphs there for the two engines, and Peter Muddy McGrath just monitoring everything there and using the technology to his advantage. These engines are, in these boats, 850 horsepower carburetted big blocks, and they are basically designed to be have parity in the class. So all the engines have to make the same power. All the guys get handed their computer chips at the start of the weekend to make sure that everyone's running the same computer programs and telemetry in these boats, so that we get good, close, fair racing. But of course, you've got to be there at the end, and that's what these guys have done the best today. It's the last man standing, the 222, Darren Nicholson and Peter Muddy McGrath. And I tell you what, they'll get extra from the sponsors, won't they, after this one, because they are getting plenty of airtime. That's what you've got to do. You've got to be out there and you've got to be running. So Nicholson and McGrath, they'll be making sure they don't break anything in this one as they just come through. You can see the hatches at the top of the cockpit there. They have the hatch there that obviously they can get out the top. There's also a hatch at their feet. So if the boat does go inverted, it barrel rolls and ends up landing upside down, they have air supply. You can actually see Peter McGrath's elbow there. If you just look at his elbow, we'll have just picked up, there's an air regulator, just the bright yellow air regulator next to him. Obviously if the boat goes upside down, that cockpit will eventually fill up with water. They don't fill up instantly. They are reasonably well sealed, but they're not completely watertight. So they do fill up with water, so they have that air supply. They have probably about a 4 or 5 metre lead where they can actually swim out if they have to from the bottom of the boat. From the top, the hatch that you can see above their heads there, or if they have to climb out through the tunnel of the boat. As I said, there's a hatch between the two guys' legs there, just directly below the strut. You can't quite see it in shot, but there's a hatch there that they can open up and climb out into the tunnel of the boat, which I'm sure if you watch offshore powerboat racing, you've seen plenty of guys do in rollovers and crashes over the years. So very, very safe deals, these boats these days. The cockpits are designed to withstand about 4,000 or 5,000 Newton metres of impact force. They also have deflector panels inside the boat that you can't see, but they've actually got panels that are built on effectively a 45-degree angle, so that if the boat does have a big crash, the water is dispersed and the energy is dispersed out through these impact panels and pushes away and takes the impact away from the cockpit. So a lot of technology in these boats, and as I said, it's gone from being probably one of the most dangerous sports in the world to probably one of the most safe sports that you can go out there and do, particularly in motorsport. And these guys doing a great job. This boat is absolutely immaculately prepared. You could eat your dinner off the floor of this particular Newcastle 222 machine, and the livery is absolutely spot on as well. As they come down at the back straight away, just chattering now. This type of water they're hitting here, as I said a little bit earlier on, like corrugated road. They bounce along and it's not too rough for the boat to be jumping out of the water. The boat's probably doing around about 120 miles an hour, and because the conditions don't look that rough, it actually doesn't look that fast, but let me assure you, they are pounding across this water at a great rate of knots with their eyes bouncing in their head. But I tell you what, it was a relatively easy one for them this afternoon, but the checkered flag comes out on the Hog's Breath finish boat. Darren Nicholson, Peter McGrath, open the bank, son, put the points in there because they have got the job done, and Maritimo will be licking their wounds and wondering how they are going to gather all those points back. Let's have a look. So, as we said, 222 Offshore, the only boat to get started in that one. Maritimo 11 DNS and also 12 DNS as well. And the real race that went on, Supercat outboard, the Phantom takes the win over the Power Zone, and that was some great racing between the outboard boats.
It's unfortunate that Maritimo guys had a fuel issue and a rocker on the other motor. It's a damn shame. I don't like to be taking that trading without having had a tussle with them. So, but they'll get it fixed and be back at it next time. The guys in the off season have worked really hard at fixing up some weight distribution, changing some angle of drives and new propellers. So, no, it's good. I quite like turning up and it's all boxes being ticked. That's great. So, very happy.
Well, we thought it'd be on again for the second race with 88, which they did too. They came in as hard again, and it was rougher again, and they had a malfunction with their boat, so they backed off to come home, and we were pretty happy about that too because it was rough enough. It
really was another great race with Mick and the Phantom. We certainly pushed it hard in the early few laps to try and stay with them, but the conditions really started to get very hard for us. And we did end up breaking a couple of frames in the boat, but we only found that out after the race. So it was probably a good thing that we did back off a little bit, but we definitely tried to stay in touch with them, but the conditions just got worse throughout the race for us. Certainly very happy with taking this bunch of points home with us, and we will be looking forward to Lake Macquarie. We had a great race there last year, so let's hope we can do it again this year.
Well, a bit light on for numbers, but I tell you what, the racing was intense. 222 now sitting atop of the table, of course, back to Phantom, Power Zone, Maritimo 11 and Maritimo 12 with a whole lot of work to do after round number one. Supercat Extreme Championship after round number one, and 222 again sitting atop of the table, 180 points. Maritimo 11, 102, and Maritimo 12 on 100 points. The Supercat outboard category and a few more boats hopefully coming this way for the next round, but on top of the table now the Phantom with 2 wins and Power Zone not far behind with 171 points. Well, that wraps up racing here from beautiful Bowen. We have to thank the town of Bowen for their wonderful hospitality. As always, they do a fantastic job. The next round, well, that's going to be Lake Macquarie, and that's always an exciting one. The 13th and 14th of October. Certainly looking forward to that one, and we'll see you there.